All right, so I just realized after I ended the recording button that there was an error over here, so I missed out the name of the event, and I just simply need to copy the word transfer from here, and just put the name of the event as transfer. So that should take care of the error that Solidly was flagging to me. And if you were coding along with me, you should have a similar error, which is fine. Just some more explanation I would like to give around the allowed mapping, as I see that this might be slightly confusing. So let's take a step back and just look at the allowed mapping one more time before we conclude, and then move on to running and deploying the smart contract. So here is where I declared the allowed mapping, right? So I'll just zoom it a bit. All right, so here is where I declared the allowed mapping. Now, the allowed mapping has an address, and then it has a mapping inside the mapping. It's nested mapping. So I'll just write over here that this is nested mapping. And it has an address and an address inside it, and that address has an unsigned integer inside it. So if you diagrammatically want to visualize how this data structure looks like, I'll share some more visual representation of this. So essentially, this is how the address mapping looks like from the inside, from a data structure perspective. So you've got the main address over here, which is essentially this address, and inside this address you have another address, and you could have another address, and you could have another address, and you could have many of these addresses inside one address. And each of these addresses, so let's say I'm talking about address A, so this is address A, has an unsigned integer inside it, which is your account balance. So I have the main address, and inside that main address I could have any number of child addresses, and this is what the mapping essentially tells me. So the allowed mapping tells me that I've got a main address, which is this one. And inside this main address, I could have an array of many addresses. So at the moment, I've just listed out 3. This could be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, as many addresses that you have. So the allowed mapping is essentially that this main address is allowing these sub addresses to transact on its behalf. So I'm allowing, so let's say this is me, I'm allowing address A, address B, address C to do transactions on my behalf. And for that to happen, the first thing I need to give them the check. So for example, address 1 over here has allowed address A to transact 100 tokens on behalf of address 1. Over here, address 2, somebody else, could be you. You have allowed address C, another address, to trade 200 tokens on your behalf. So this is how essentially the allowed mapping basically looks like when it's declared and when it's defined. So yeah, in case if you have any questions, confusions, just drop them on the comments. Yeah, I'll make sure that you get some visibility. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question. And once again, I would be explaining these more in my flagship bootcamp. But yeah, for now, if you're coding along, that should be sufficient knowledge for you to successfully write and deploy your ERC20 contract. So that pretty much brings us to the end of the first part of ERC20 contract development. And the next thing I'm essentially going to do is that I'll simply compile this, and hopefully no errors. And I'll go ahead and I'll start the deployment process of this contract on the blockchain. And then I'll start interacting with this contract and its respective functions that we've developed over here. And then we'll go from there. So with all of that and more in the next lesson.